Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Commander's Pod. I'm your pod father, Duncan.
I'm Sloan.
And I'm Jeff.
You sure about that? Are you sure?
Not sure.
Okay. Wow.
Already started out good.
He's like, what's my line? What's my line?
I was thinking about my what's aggravating me, so.
Oh, okay. Have you not thought about it before right now?
Distracted. No.
All right.
But
All right.
It's just that aggravating.
Yeah. Well, what we are going to talk about today, so we got a follower email discussing maybe adding another bracket and seeing if that might help. And they had some reasons, and there was even a graph, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
love some graphs.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get spicy.
Yeah, well, that's a little later. We'll talk about, so there's some Universes Beyond rumors for 2026.
There is.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to have a card of the day. We're going to have a counterspell segment, maybe do a little back and forth. Usually Sloan's either at one end or in the middle. We'll see where he lands on this one.
Fisticuffs.
Tales from the table, kind of, and some pro tips, and aggro Jeff. Yes?
Yeah. So
We'll just do that. Go ahead.
it's very hard to know. Well, hi, it's Jeff. It's very hard to figure out what movie theater is good nowadays. Like there used to be a time when the movie theaters were all sort of the same. When new technology came out, it went to the theaters and they upgraded it. You sort of knew this was a newer theater. So I went to a theater in Tampa with my wife, and we had our 20th anniversary. We went on a trip to Tampa to a nice hotel and some nice restaurants and stuff. And we went to see a movie while we were there, and we saw F1. By the way, amazing movie. And the sound was amazing. The picture was amazing. It was great. I was like, this is not the experience I'm getting at, my local theater. So then I, hit ChatGPT because, who uses, Google anymore? And it was very difficult that, one, there weren't amazing theaters in my area. They're all kind of older or smaller. And
Or both.
Yes, that's true. But I found one that said it had like the 3D plus, because it's not named normal stuff. Like it's RDX, 3D plus, this and that, all kinds of things to like you just you don't know what any of it means. So I went to this theater. I actually went with Duncan and his wife, and my wife. We all went, and we saw giant chickens with no feathers, and while we were
those
there,
are dinosaurs for those of you at home.
The sound was not good, right? It was low too. It wasn't only not good; it was low. The screen was tiny. I would have had better
sound. Are you sure
sound.
it wasn't one of our episodes?
Oh, it could have been. I would have had better sound at my house. And I was I'm annoyed because it should not be this difficult to find a good theater. So if anybody's out there and you know of a good theater, let me know. I will travel. So if you're in Idaho or something, it's worth it.
So let me help you out here. You said who uses Google? People that want accurate information, because ChatGPT will just straight up make up things. Just random. So it'll give you great information 4 times, and the 5th time be like, I'm just going to make this up.
There was some stuff it missed. Like it told me about a theater that's closed.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why are you telling me about a theater that's closed? It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't specify you wanted a theater that was open.
It will also sometimes like make up a theater. It'll like, how about this one? It's got IMAX. It's got 3D sound. It has
I've never
4D.
seen it do
You
that.
actually have mist in your face. You're like, I want to go there.
I have the
doesn't
one
exist.
you pay for. I've never seen it do that.
No, it does. It will make up, and given enough chances, it will make something up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know if it makes it up or it's because somebody made it up on the internet.
Oh, that could be. Yep.
Yeah, because all it does is pull information
Yeah,
it finds
that could
online.
But when you go on Google, you can actually look at other people's feedback and see that they said,
Well,
100 people said that
I could
there's
also ask for links to that, but I didn't have a lot of choices, so I made a decision.
And also,
It was
you
a
trust
poor one.
machines more than people.
The pizza was good, though. Weird enough, at a movie theater, the pizza was really good.
So
I'm happy about that.
yeah, I just thought the movie sucked. So
Yeah,
that was my take on it.
Well, I would tell you funny things, but I'd ruin the movie for him. So it's terrible. But you should go see it anyways. It's Jurassic Park. That's what we do, right? We go see terrible movies when they're the 3rd, 4th, 5th version of it.
Yeah.
No, we talk
don't.
about Commander on this podcast. We don't talk about.
Oh, is that what we're
yeah,
doing?
this is not a movie.
Darn it, he got me.
Yeah.
He
My
got
name
me.
is Jeff.
All right.
Next.
So let's talk about something that does have to do with magic.
Hey.
Let's talk about Universes Beyond.
Yes.
Which coincidentally we'll be talking about things that aren't magic.
So
But could be.
my code for this, now Sloan can't answer because him and I have discussed this.
Yes.
But Jeff did not understand my code for this.
I think I know the code.
Okay, so what's the
Now
code?
that I know it's a code, Star Wars and Star Trek.
Okay, yes. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be a
There
proper nerd if I don't know those.
two rumors going around that there's going
Yes.
to either be a Star Wars or a Star Trek.
You want to tell them what the codes are, though?
So the code was when I put a long time ago, and where is where no man has gone before.
Yeah.
So, so there's been rumors. Now, Ben Bateman came out
Yes.
with two different videos.
Yes.
One's kind of supporting the Star Wars,
Yep.
and one supporting the Star Trek.
Right.
Now, I think there was more evidence for the Star Trek.
Oh,
Right. But the thing is, which when we were discussing this Saturday night at the shop, some of the evidence that was used was from a source that had created fake material before, and that stuff never came to fruition.
Oh, no.
So it was a little tainted in regards to the source of where it came from. However, though, the other stuff he stated for both Star Wars and Star Trek were pretty strong supporting points.
So here's what we know. There have been releases, or not releases, leaks of playtest cards for Star Trek.
Yes.
But they didn't look like your standard Magic cards.
Right.
So that made them more suspect.
Yeah, but you imagine if they're playtest cards, they're not putting a lot of effort into the look, I guess.
Well, but even like the layout of the card was more reminiscent of this. You remember the Star Wars game we used to play with the miniatures, whatever it was called, and like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had like the battle cards for them.
Yep.
They looked more like that for Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So-
it could just be another.
And then they said at the top,
another
playtest.
CCG that someone's trying to make you think Magic is using.
Maybe.
Maybe,
I don't know.
But the other piece of evidence is that next year, which is when this set, well, so let me get into that in a minute. But next year is Star Trek 60th anniversary.
Correct.
Oh.
So it would fall in line with that, with
Yep.
the 2026 release.
Yeah.
And then, so the other piece that fits into either or is that there's only 7 announced products for next year, and they always do even.
Yeah.
Always.
So there's one more that
Dude, if
we
they're
don't
Star
know.
Trek, I'm saving up because I'm probably dropping like $1,500, $2,000 easy.
And then the one that
I'm
was
100%
suspect
there for that.
was a online store
Yeah.
posted pre-order information for Star Trek.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
With price points and everything. Actually, 2 sites posted the information. One had prices, one did not.
Right.
And I believe the one that did not was the one that has done fake stuff before.
Right.
The one that did has not done fake stuff before. They took it down and posted a public apology, but didn't say it was real, was fake.
Oh, because they got in trouble.
Yeah.
They got a cease and desist.
So that's the evidence for the Star Trek. The really
Right.
the evidence for Star Wars is more circumstantial.
Yeah, it's a little bit more based around kind of what they did with the conventions next year and the timing of the dates as well as the set that's coming out this year, Edge of Eternities. Now, Edge of Eternities kind of plays to both Star Trek and Star Wars, which is another supporting thing everyone's kind of using for both of them. They're like, why are we going out into space?
Yeah.
Kind of, it seems like
It's like they're creating something.
yeah,
ahead
they're
of time
trying.
so
Yeah,
there's
they're
a
trying to
precedent.
set up. Yeah, exactly. And so, but the evidence for the Star Wars one was pretty heavily insinuated using some of the same points. But the biggest thing is, I believe one of the conventions was moved into May, the weekend of May the 4th. They literally moved the convention date to.
And Revenge of the Sith.
And yeah, so it's actually falls on that weekend of Star Wars weekend, basically, is what it will be. And they moved the date to that weekend specifically, which seems a little coincidental. A lot of people are like, you don't make a bunch of nerds come to a convention on one of like the most recognized nerd holidays of May the 4th for no reason. Like, there's got to be something. And so that's kind of partial of the suspicion is that's why they think they're kind of pushing towards it, and it may be happening with Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a very circumstantial.
So
Not
but
that I
there's-
wouldn't be excited about Star Wars. Be stoked about
Yeah.
that too.
But so there's more actual evidence for Star Trek.
yes,
There's nothing that says we can't get both.
that's true.
Oh, and the other piece for Star Wars is that Hasbro already, which is the parent company of Wizards of the Coast,
Right.
already owns the right to Star Wars toys.
Right.
And
Good point.
the idea is that would fall into the TCG category as well.
Yeah, but they don't. But they probably don't own the right to put them on cards.
Well, if it depends how they're qualified or quantified in the contract.
Right.
Yeah.
The suspicion is that they would be considered a toy, and that therefore they would be allowed to use that contract.
So I think technically they're considered a game, right? So the question is, does Hasbro have the?
Well, they
right-
can
and I
be
think they
in
do.
multiple categories.
You can,
Doesn't-
as long as it falls in one, because
But
technically
I think
when
we're
you
good because Hasbro makes games. Don't they make like games?
Yeah.
And do they have a
But
Star
they-
Wars Monopoly they make? Because that would cover it.
I don't. But that's the thing. I don't know if they have.
They
we
don't
don't
make
know.
Monopoly.
They don't have the right
That's Parker
to
Brothers, I think.
creating a game with Star Wars. I think they just have the right to create toys with Star Wars,
Right.
Well, but
which is
It
why
would-
the verbiage is very important.
Right. Nobody knows until you see the contract. And
Right.
none of us are going to be able to see that contract.
I mean, shoot it over. We'll glance it over
Yeah.
real quick for you.
We'll redline it for you. But anyway, so those are the two things.
Yep.
Now, Ben Bateman did say his bet is on Star Trek.
Yeah.
He feels pretty confident that it's coming. Now, he works with Wizards of the Coast, so he cannot leak information.
Right.
So he wanted to make clear that he doesn't know. That's
Yeah.
the only reason he's allowed to even speculate is because he doesn't know one way or the other.
Right.
He would not be allowed to talk about if he knew it definitely wasn't coming. He can't say what might be coming. And if he knew it was definitely coming, he can't say, hey, it's coming or it might be coming.
and Hasbro does make Star Wars games like Risk Star Wars and many others.
There you go.
So
that would tend to make me think that, again, so there's evidence for both, a little bit stronger for Star Trek, but there's nothing that says we can't get both.
I don't think you do both in the same year though.
No, but we might get Star Trek closer to the release of Edge of Eternities just before the end of the year.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I mean,
man,
because the other thing
Not
is
enough
too
time to
is
save.
I mean the IPs that Wizards has been pulling have just been insane. Like they are getting some ridiculous IPs to put into this game, and which clearly have been paying off. I mean, very
are
successful Final Fantasy set,
Yeah.
very successful Deadpool Secret Lair. I hear a lot of
Marvel
people.
Secret Lair.
The Marvel
Warhammer
Secret
went
Lair.
well.
Warhammer did pretty good. It wasn't as good as I think they were probably hoping. It wasn't bad
Well,
though by
it's
any
more
means.
of a niche thing.
Yeah.
It's
Even the
definitely-
Lord
Sonic
of the
one
Rings,
that.
though, the last year.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings was fantastic,
Oh,
and then the
such a
Sonic
great
one
one.
that's coming out, I hear a lot of people are actually pretty decently excited about it. You know, they're actually planning on getting at least a couple of the secret layers for that too. So I mean, they're doing a really good job in regards to pooling these IPs and putting them into Magic. So we'll just have to see where it falls, and hopefully, my fingers are crossed that we get both. That would be my ultimate dream,
Oh,
obviously.
man, we
but
could actually battle out who wins
Star Wars
versus Star Trek.
That'd be hilarious. I mean, we would absolutely have to do a Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Like the pre-constructed decks, 1v1.
Yeah, just see who can. Or,
Yeah, or
if we have a 4-pod, 2
4
Star
pod.
Treks versus 2 Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Emperor.
No, I don't do Emperor.
Emperor
takes too
with
long.
Star Wars and Star Trek.
Only if they actually make the Emperor.
Oh, they will.
We'll make a new format. It'll be like Captain, Lieutenant Commander, and Lieutenant Commander.
If Star Trek comes out, they're going to be such great episodes where we're talking about Star Trek and barely talking about magic.
There's
I
gonna-
might-
Star
I might-
Wars, the pure Star Wars fans are like Star Trek sucks. They're going to be
Yeah.
like, we'll just not watch those ones and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So, but anyway, so
I
those
just want
are
to equip a
rumors.
lightsaber to somebody.
The other thing is, we're still going to get other stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like those are the only things coming.
Yeah,
Right.
but what else matters?
Right. So just a little tales from the table, and I'm not going to use names because I don't want to call anybody out. But
You know who you are.
But yeah, exactly. So playing at
I
our
don't know
shop
who they are.
with one of the people who is also a follower and a Patreon supporter who we play with, and it was me, him, and one other player. I got taken out because obviously I am the arch enemy when Andrew's not there.
As it
So,
should be.
They were battling it out.
He's a stone structure with a circular top.
Wow. Anyway, so the other player facing the follower of ours was a less strong player, I'll say. Okay. So I was trying to not give advice per se, but to point out triggers that they may be missing, things like that were, more procedural than actual
Doing
game.
some
Like
light coaching.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But not really telling them how to play or telling them what to do. Just hey, don't forget your trigger here. Don't forget, that type of thing. So he was actually doing pretty good, and he had a commander, and I apologize, I cannot remember what the commander or the ability was, but whatever it was, the supporter of ours, it was bad for them if this went on the stack. It was an end step trigger. So the supporter said, let me know when you're moving to your end step. And they said, okay, I'm going to move to my end step. He goes, okay, as you move to your end step before the end step begins, I'm going to blow up that card. So there will be no end step trigger. And now I'm going to take my turn. I go, whoa, hold on. That's not how this works.
Right.
Because you stopped him moving into his end step, he did not get to go into his end step. So if he wants to recast that card, his commander, and he has the mana, he can do that.
Right.
So then the end step trigger would still happen.
Correct.
And this supporter, who knows the rules very well, was adamant that that's not how that worked. No, he passed priority, so it's already moving. I'm just reacting before it moves. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Right.
If you respond, and we've talked about this before in the podcast, if you respond before the end step begins, that means they are still in their second main and then have an option to not move forward into their end step. If they still want to, they still can, unless you have more responses then, but that's how it works. Otherwise, if they're in their end step, then the trigger's on the stack and you have to deal with that.
Correct.
So, but the point of this story is even very, very knowledgeable players make mistakes. I will say it was not Andrew. Okay. But even Andrew has made mistakes before. And
it's not a hard one to make. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people playing out there right now that have no idea that's how it works.
Right. And strangely enough, this person, even after outside verification that is how it works, was adamant that that's not. They have yet to prove that by any sources. If there's some new rule.
But they do have the right to look it up.
Right.
That's
100%.
another good point, is when there's an argument or disagreement, you don't have to agree with the other person. You can go look it up.
Right. And to settle the matter, they did say, okay, well, because I'm being told by multiple people that this is how it works, I'll accept that for this moment, but you're all wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
But regardless.
Yeah. And I think that's a good middle ground to take if you're that confident.
Right.
And then it's up to you, since the majority disagrees, it's up to you to go prove your point.
And I'm not saying this to make that person feel bad. That's why I didn't use their name. My point is to use this for people to know just because somebody's knowledgeable doesn't mean they don't make mistakes and don't sometimes have those rulings wrong. They may be using old information, or when they got that information, it was a very specific situation that doesn't apply in most cases, and they didn't realize that. There can be a lot of things that happen that do that. Happens to all of us at all the time, where we think we know how it works, and it doesn't work that way. So even the most knowledgeable players can make mistakes.
And just have fun.
To call out Andrew, just because to kind of show he's the one that was basically a certified judge, and then they basically got rid of the judge whole system.
Now you have to basically pay to be a judge.
Yeah, you have to pay to be a judge. But he built an entire commander deck by misunderstanding a commander's ability.
Yeah.
And then he went down to sit the plate the very first time. He was like, that's not how that works. This deck's absolutely useless. I'm just going to scoop and get a different deck.
He actually went one step further. Another time he built a deck wrong, misreading how the commander ability works. He worked with it for a whole week because none of us read the card close enough to realize he was wrong. So he was just playing with the commander.
Yeah, and that's a guy who literally took the judge test to become a judge when that
but
was
all of us did just like, sure.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. Yep. You're reading that 100% right.
And then he came back and goes, hey, that doesn't work that way. We're like, what?
Yeah, and everybody still had fun all the games.
Yes. Yep.
You know,
So.
that's what's
And I've done it. I built a commander once, and I thought it said, do such and such and such and such, and then you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. No. It just said, and then you may cast the spell. I just wanted it to say without paying it's going to cost. So I guess my eyes saw that. But anyway, so that's the Tales from the Table for this week. So now the follower email. So I'm going to read the email, and then we will get into the topic.
It was an interesting email to say the least. What they proposed was, I mean,
they made a graph.
Right. They built a graph, and he did
to help support their point.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where the data for this graph, or if there is data, or if this is made up, or opinion. Could be opinion. Let me read the email and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Heyo Commanders Pod. Check out this graph I made after seeing a similar one featured on the Command Zone made by Pygmy Worm on Blusky. Those are words.
Yep.
What do you think? I think a bracket 0 would be very helpful to reshape bracket 1 to be the core starter place, allowing bracket 2 to be the synergy place, bracket 3 to be a slightly advanced stack space, and bracket 4 to be max power casual before the jump to 5 CEDH. People have been asking where they can play their old big spells because even bracket 2 modern precons are getting pushed, and I think the place should be in bracket 1. And bracket 0 could be the place for giant silliness where winning doesn't matter even a little bit. And I'll put the graph up behind us. Mm-hmm. And what the graph is saying is like, where should games end? And it's saying, dark green is like, it definitely should not end here. It's too soon. Light green, games might end early here. Yellow, games are likely to end here. That's kind of the where you expect it.
Right.
Orange, games might end later here. And then red, games should often end by here. Like that's like late, but by then it should win.
Yeah, game should be over.
So, I talked about when we first talked about the brackets having a tier below 1, because I think there's two separate things that right now do take up the space of 1. The jank decks that are like, it's all hats or whatever. And then also, though, are the just below precons where it's just like big stompy creatures, the old Elder Dragon Highlander decks where it's like, your commander costs 8, and when it comes out, it doesn't do that much compared to commanders nowadays.
Yeah, battle cruiser magic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because the biggest thing is right now is that I still want the existing brackets to be more defined. Obviously, we're still in the infancy of the bracket system. We're only, October they announced this, so we're still sub 1 year of them being out.
I think it was later than that. October is when everything blew up, and that was after that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's one of those things where I think I can definitely maybe see something like that happening, but I would like to actually see this be a little bit more defined.
Well, and I think
it exists now,
and they could define it and then still add a 0,
right? And that's what
then helps further clarify.
Right, and that's what I'd rather see first. I'd rather see 1 through 5 get defined because again,
in fact, it would make sense: 0 game changers, 1 game changer, 2 game changers, 3 game changers at 3.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, I think a further definition of the existing brackets right now is, I think, in my opinion, more of a help than adding another one that we have flimsy definitions of.
Well, okay, but there's nothing saying you can't have both. And we have already talked about what we think the further definitions will be.
But what I'm saying is, if he's saying, hey, let's add bracket 0 right now, my response is no.
Right.
My response would be, let's figure out 1 through 5 first, and then once we actually get 1 through 5 figured out, if we see, there still is a need for something below 1, great, add a bracket 0. Don't care. But right now, I don't think that's going to help anything. I think it just kind of muddles more of what is already not well defined, in my opinion.
Jeff?
What do you think, Jeff?
That's you, Jeff.
So hi, I'm Jeff. So one of the things that I looked at in that letter that he sent us is that in bracket 0, he talks about, let me read exactly what he says here. He says, for jank silliness where winning doesn't matter even a little bit. I think my point to that would be is if a lot of people feel strongly about a 0, it doesn't matter that much to me. I'm fine with that.
Right.
But if winning doesn't matter even a little bit to you, why do you need a bracket for yourself? You could be in 1, 2, or 3 and still not care about winning. And I would argue that it's more fun to play a silly, goofy deck in brackets 1, 2, or 3, or 4 because you didn't care about winning to begin with.
Right.
Now you're just screwing with people, and that's funny. Like, they're playing an actual card, and you're like, all right, well, here's my next Kithkin. And you're like, because I made a Kithkin deck, and I think it's funny. Or whatever hat deck, here's my guy with a hat, and they're like, he's a 1-2 with no abilities, but he has a purple hat.
Right.
And I think that's, if you're going to be silly, that's sillier. So, with that point, I would say, I don't think you need a 0 if that's the point. However, if you're saying what Duncan just said, which is 0 game changers, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think that kind of seems neat. If they went with that, I'd be okay with that. In general, I don't know that it's our biggest need right now. I would be okay doing it. I kind of agree with what Johnny is with the caveat. I wouldn't say we can't do it. You could do it. But certainly it's not our biggest problem. I think our biggest problem is certainly at 3, 4, and 5.
So I didn't scroll all the way down. So there is in our paragraph. Also, having 6 total brackets would get us back to an even number where 3 is no longer the default middle. And sincerely, Adam at Mana Sparks.
Which he's right. It does get rid of a middle, but I'm not actually sure that's good.
Yeah, I don't know that matters per se.
Well, I think it's good to have a 3 in the middle. I think the idea of this, we've talked about many times, is gearing people towards a 3.
Yeah,
So
but if they were geared towards a 2 or a 3, that's okay too.
The only thing that I have is right now as it stands, if we just add a bracket 0 in, right, with the current setup that we have, and get the 6, and we basically say nothing's allowed in this bracket except for pure silliness, right? So we get rid of the tutors, we get rid of no combos, no tutors, no game changers, no mass land denial, no single target land denial, no nothing. And you're just build pure silliness with all of these restrictions on it. Then you go to 1 and it's like, same thing, except you can have tutors now. It's like, okay. Okay, sure. It's the same problem
now.
Well, but it's the problem that we have with 4 and 5, right? It's like there's no difference. Like, what's the point? Because
and let me just point out that by this tier 0 would be 8 turns minimum before you would start seeing games.
Oh yeah, and that's 100% true. If you're playing a hat deck,
yeah,
like getting to the point where you can even get enough creatures to do any damage would be very difficult. But I think if they're going to do something like that, they would need to add in more things. Like I would almost say, if you're going to do a 0, there's no counters, there's no board wipes. And otherwise, you want to talk about the game being over at 8, it might not be over until 28.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. So I think, as it stands right now, I don't see a need for it, but I think a little bit has to do more with Commander bracket system not having clear definitions that are more concrete.
Right.
Is my counterpoint.
But as we're talking about it, if you did have a bracket where there were no counter spells and no board wipes and maybe that might actually be fun. Like
Duncan would refuse to exist in that bracket.
Okay,
yeah,
then
those games.
That just proves my point. It'd be more fun. So thank you for that. It'd be more fun. But I think there are people out there that want to play that. They don't want to play counters. They don't want to play board wipes. Some people don't even want to play interaction.
The other thing I would say, I'll put the bracket back up, the graph back up there.
I mean, technically you could leave it there the whole time. You don't have to.
Yeah, but don't, because he's taking it down and putting it back up. It's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
It really depends on your meta. I'm thinking about it. How often do we end on turns 7, 8, and 9?
A lot.
You think?
Yeah.
I feel like it's much later. It feels much later.
Oh, you mean, yeah, 7, 8, or 9 or later, yes.
Yeah, this is kind of saying 7, 8, or 9 are the average.
But we play a ton of interaction.
Yeah, so that's why I say it depends on your meta.
Yeah, I mean, and that, yeah, again, that's the other thing too, is
I just wanted to point that out because I just felt like people are going to write in and be like, no, that's so wrong. Like that. It depends on your meta.
Yeah, and as you guys can see on the graph, this is a curve. Like this is if you average every game out in these, this is what's going to happen. I mean, it shows that in CEDH on turn 0 the game can end, which is technically true. There are turn 0 combos that can end a game in CEDH. It is very possible to be done. With that being said, though, the average is showing closer to like a 2 to 4 range, 5 to 6 range is kind of on the higher end of the average, and then someone's winning by 7 and on. Pretty much.
Right, and also, like Duncan said at the beginning, this is someone's graph.
Yeah.
We don't even know what data made this graph, but it is a cool to talk about.
Yeah, and I do think it's pretty good generalization.
Right.
I mean, I don't look at it and go, please.
Yeah.
No, it's not terribly far off base. But
it's not. I think Adam did a good job.
And maybe
wherever
he
he
can
got
tell us
his
where
data.
he got the data too.
Yeah, that
Adam
would be cool.
is a listener.
He played
Adam,
1,000 games.
I would want to know that story if that was true. That's.
Oh yeah, I would love that data.
Yeah, I recorded data
games.
for 1,000 games.
For 1,000 games.
I played. What would that break out
Duncan,
to?
that would
I
take
don't know.
you 2 weeks.
Like 10 games in every bracket and.
More than that.
100 games in every bracket. No, it'd have to be more than that.
Duncan,
200 games in every bracket.
Pretty close.
Duncan would get 1,000 games done in like 2 weeks, I think.
Probably.
Man, hold my beer. But anyway, so I just thought that was an interesting email, a good topic to talk about. Thank you, Adam, for sending that in. If anybody has any thoughts about that, you can email us, CastleCommaresPod, like he did, and we'll talk about them here on the air. So let's get into our counterspell segment. I'm kind of looking
forward to
forward
the
to this.
spice, folks.
All right, so my statement is, manipulating someone through politics into making a bad deal is just as bad as lying at the table. Like lying at the table, not
lying down on the table. I mean, it could be just as bad as someone lying down on the table, depending on who that person is.
Especially if the cards are still on the table.
So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I hate politics to begin with. When it comes to Magic, I think it's just.
But if you have to deal with them because people do it.
Yeah,
and so when you weigh those two things on your scale, how do they weigh out? Which one's worse?
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't think lying at the table is any better than politicking at the table, especially when someone's politicking someone into a bad deal. And, people may argue with me and say I'm not politicking, but I've literally had to explain to somebody, hey, just so you know, when you take this deal, he's going to win the game because the way he's wording it, he's pigeonholing you into not being able to respond to do anything. And they're like, yeah, but I don't think that was going to happen. I was like, okay, go for it. And then sure enough, next turn they win. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's frustrating me because I feel like a lot of times, man, I mean, I don't know. I literally can't pick one. I'm physically torn right now.
So they're even on your they're even on your scale.
Yeah, they're even in regards to they're both the worst. Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, I would say that.
Jeff, where do they rate for you?
So there's a couple problems here that we need to identify. A couple words like manipulating. What do you mean? Bad deal. What does that mean?
Well, so manipulating is just that. Using, I mean, any type of manipulation, not going so far as to like threaten or, something like that.
Manipulation is something you use in your life every single day. For instance, when you have the aunt in your family who does not understand a certain type of humor like sarcasm. Well, you're going to choose not to use sarcasm around that person, so you have better interactions. I think if we're talking about manipulating, like as in negative,
you can replace that word with deliberately making a deal that is a bad deal for the other person.
So then we got to talk about what bad deal is. So if you are misrepresenting something to trick someone into a bad deal, I would say that is essentially lying.
Well, so anytime you make a politics deal, you have information they don't, they have information you don't.
Sure.
Right? But a lot of times you might be the smarter player, right? You do this more.
You are.
You might be the one who's more experienced. You might be the one who, knows the rules a little better, can read the table a little better, can read the threats a little better, and you use that to your advantage to make a bad deal, make somebody else who is not as knowledgeable, not as versed into making a bad deal that's going to allow you to win the game. For instance, don't attack me until my next turn, and I won't do this. When you do darn well on your next turn, you're going to win.
Yeah. So when I talk about manipulation and sales training, we talk about what is the difference between great communication and manipulation, and the difference is intent. So there's a couple things we have to talk about. When your intent is only for yourself, then that gets into the realm of sort of, the negativity of manipulation, right? That's no longer just good communication. You're trying to hurt them. Now, the challenge with this is we're talking about a game where you're trying to win.
Yes.
But you're still a moral person who has to make moral decisions. So the crux of the discussion is about the bad deal. Almost any deal you make with someone in life, like they'll talk about a good deal is when both people lose a little bit, right? So, or a good deal is when everybody compromises. So typically when you're making a deal with someone, you're trading one thing for another. Now, the difficulty comes in, like, let's take a pawn shop, for instance. When someone goes into a pawn shop and says, I want to give you this item, are they getting the full value of that item?
No, I mean,
no, not even close, right? They're essentially getting ripped off. But they're making a deliberate choice to get money fast instead of getting the most money.
Right.
That pawn shop owner can even say to that person, listen, what you're about to do is maybe not the best decision, but here's what I can offer you. Here's what I can offer you. And they know they're lowballing them. But it's a pawn shop, and that's what you do. That person decided to make that deal.
Okay, but what we're talking about is somewhere where that other person doesn't realize that they're making a deal that
so if you're in a situation in a game and someone's very worried about something on your board or something on someone else's board, and that's the main thing they want is for that thing to be dealt with, and you say, I can deal with that thing, but my deal is this. If you deal with that thing, don't attack me for a turn. Now, if they ask me a question, are you going to win on your next turn, which would be a really good question to ask in that moment, and I say, no, I'm not, then I come to my next turn and I knew I was going to win, that's lying.
Right.
That's morally wrong.
Right, that's the other side of the coin. That's
right,
not what
but just saying to them, okay, you want me to deal with that creature or that thing? I'll deal with it for you if you do this for me. That's simply a deal.
But,
not making any conversation about what will happen or what the consequences are. You want me to deal with it? I'll deal with it. Here's the deal.
But specifically when you know, it's
matter.
a newer player who does not know politics very well.
That's a different equation if it's a new player.
Newer.
If it's a new player, you should take it easy and help them. If anything, help them understand what you could do in politics and teach them. Like that's what I think you should do in that case.
I mean, if you're a newer player, I'd just say don't even politic until you actually learn how to play the game. Because that's going to be a huge
But you have to remember, some new players are better at the politicking than they are playing the game. Like when you sit down and you play poker with someone, some people are better at reading the other people than they are at actually playing the game. Play to your strength.
Let's take the veneer off this because I think we're not talking about what it. So I can say I've seen you do this, Jeff, and I've seen you do it to newer players.
Well, hold on. So because you're making a bit of a judgment here. You've seen me purposely trick new players into a bad deal.
So, yes.
No, not with deception.
No, I said you didn't lie.
No, absolutely.
It was a situation very much like you said.
Yeah, if I present the deal, I say, you want me to deal with this thing, I'll deal with this thing. Here's what I'm asking in return.
Which is don't attack me. And you knew at that time that you were going to win if you had your next turn.
No, typically.
If nothing changed, you knew you were going to
win. No, not the case. It has not happened.
No?
No.
That's felt like that.
No, well, because, okay, so if I'm playing a Planeswalker deck, right?
Yeah.
And I want these Planeswalkers to stay alive, I can draw into something like Deep Glow Skate that can instantly pop them off, right? And I can win. Or any number of other things that can get me where I need to go. Or maybe even just that one more turn gets me closer. It's certainly with the idea that if they're not dead, I have a better chance of winning. But typically, and again, you solve this problem by simply asking a question. What's going to happen on the next turn? And I'm pretty sure you play in the games, you always ask that. Are you going to win on your next turn?
I wasn't part of the deal.
No, but it doesn't matter if you're part of the deal. You guys both get involved. Other people get involved.
I mean, I always just say just don't make deals. That's
Right.
literally how I get involved.
Or you say what's going to happen if they make a deal. Like, I see what's on his table. If you make that deal, here's what's going to happen. And then they still make the deal.
Right.
So
I mean,
so I guess what I have to say about it is one of the key points of this topic is perception is your reality, right?
Yeah.
So
but it's
so
not
for each
necessarily true.
so at a 4-person game where a situation like this comes up,
Yeah.
and let's say the situation Jeff said, and then on his next turn he wins, and then he didn't attack him for the next turn, even though he had the ability to, and on just so there's going to be one person at that table might look at Jeff like I did and say, well, you made that deal knowing you were going to win on your next turn, and pretty much ensured you were going to win, and him being not a naive player didn't pick up on it.
So with a new player, I don't think you should do that. Now, the challenge is you're playing a game to win. And what is new player, like who is a new player is always a tough one. Like how new are they?
Right.
And
in the situation I witnessed that was similar to this most recently, you made a deal with 2 other people.
Yeah.
And one of them was newer and one of them was not. So, but the one who was newer had the better chance of dealing with you, I guess is a good way of putting it.
I think I know what you're talking about. So the other thing I would say too is I understand the desire to say these type of politics we don't want in the game, but the reality is this is a game where you play with other people, and the politics, the skills of reading people. Matter of fact, I just saw a video where someone had done sort of a deep dive into whether people with high charisma win more of these games. Like if you're a higher charisma person, does that help you win more games? Do you avoid getting attacked more? Do people try to be nicer to you because they want to befriend you? And the reality is, heck yeah, it does. But I also don't think you could be like, well, that's not fair. That's not part of the game, and I don't think you should be able to do that.
Right.
That's their advantage.
So the main reason I chose this one though is I know that's how Sloan feels about this.
Yeah.
And I know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I feel like
and I do feel
politics
like I'm
are
kind of
part of the game.
in the middle where I don't mind politics. I don't use that as much as Jeff, but I don't not use it, right? But I don't tend to also make one-sided deals all that often. I'm always going to downplay my threadative, how much of a threat
Your threat
I am.
assessment. Yeah,
No,
you're going to downplay
how much of a
your
threat I am.
Yeah, correct. You're going to say I'm not a threat.
But I'm not necessarily being dishonest because when I'm saying that, I'm saying, I'm drawing a lot of cards. I'm not hitting you in the face for 10 like he is.
But that's a challenge with all of this. Yeah. It's very up in
the
air.
But that's what I'm saying. Your perception is your reality. So in my view, what I'm saying is 100% correct. To me, drawing cards is not as bad as hitting somebody in the face for 10, which is a quarter of their life. That's how I feel. Somebody else feels very different.
But why are you not allowed to, like, even if you're like, in general, you're the biggest threat. In this game, you're not going to go, hey guys, by the way, I don't think you should do this. I'm not a threat at all, because if you're drawing 20 cards, you should know you're some sort of a threat. But part of the game might be, hey, look over here at what this guy is doing. That's more threat. That's really terrible. That's threatening. That's 100% part of the game. You should 100% be doing that. You should be attempting to move the target off yourself to others.
Right. And my point in bringing this up was not to go to Johnny's side and say, oh, Johnny wins. Politics should not be in the game. My feeling is definitely more in the middle. I use it a little bit, but I don't use it half as much as Jeff. And there may be a game here and there that I have won because of politics that I did, but not nearly as many as Jeff wins because Jeff makes good deals. And they're not like... He's not preying on the weak players. I don't want that impression. But I did see a game where a less experienced player was part of it, and it had an effect.
And to be honest, there may be times where like I make a mistake and I'm like I go for the win and I make a decision that was, well, I look back and I go, well, I wish I would have been nicer to that player. Like I wish I would have taken it easier on them more. And you're gonna have that when you play this game because. Especially if you don't play that often, you're like, I want to win. That's a healthy thing, and you just got to balance your desire to win with how you're treating people.
Right.
But I would say sometimes I win based off of politics without even making a deal.
And
there are times I get targeted less than you guys just because I'm nice to people.
And the thing that I do take away from this that maybe I should have said myself in that situation with the less experienced player was not necessarily get involved, but say to the less experienced player, make sure you ask questions.
Yes, yeah, or help them ask the questions.
Yeah. You know.
And you've played with me enough. I don't get mad at you if you do that.
No.
I'm like, you can't help him or whatever. Or like,
And
trying to make a deal.
this does work against you in times, because there are times that you are like, dude, we got to figure this out. And it's like, oh no, I'm not falling for you again. No, I'm really serious. We need to. No, no, you're not getting. Fool me once.
And there's a certain degree of politics involved in that too, because your job is to paint me as a politicker, because then they're not going to want to make a deal with me. And there's tons of ways you do that. Johnny does it differently.
Just let them listen.
Johnny has a power where he just goes, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. And that has its own challenges. Like, I've made it clear a lot of times I killed Johnny first. Why? I don't know what he's going to do, and I can't control him at all. So the only way I can deal with him is get him out of the equation, because I don't know what he'll do.
I mean, my big thing is, and part of the biggest reasons why I don't like politicking is because I don't feel like anyone can ever really honestly answer the question, are you going to win in your next turn, honestly, if you say no.
Because you don't know what you're going to do.
Exactly. That's the biggest issue with at the end of the day, 99% of the time when someone is going to make a deal with somebody so they can get back to their next turn, even if you ask them straight to their face, are you going to win in your next turn? They say, no, I don't have a way to win in my next turn right now. And then they top deck it. All that's good. It's just like, so you're saying there's always a chance that that person will win on their next turn,
100%.
whether it's intentional or unintentional, whatever the case may be. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I just tell people, I was like, listen, I'm not going to make a deal with you because what's a threat to you may not be a threat to me. What's a threat to me may not be a threat to you. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to win on my next turn. I just can't tell you. And I don't care to tell you if I am or not going to win on my next turn, because why would I tell you that? Because all you're going to do then is say, oh, okay, I'll just kill you instead then.
But if you take in Commander content, all the people that, even we watch, absolutely do some degree of politics.
Sure,
There's
yeah.
different
I mean,
levels of it.
I watch more of the Professor's game than I do of like the Command Zone games. They politic all the time, and there's, it's rowdy. It's like, it can take wild swings. It's like, I've seen the Professor like, I can't believe that just happened and I fell for it.
Right. Well, and that's the big thing is I have lost, even in Commander League, I've lost a couple of games because someone tried to make a deal with me. I'm like, I'm not gonna make a deal with you, man. I don't politic. I don't make deals. They're like, well, that's a problem. I was like, if you think it's a problem, then I advise you to deal with it.
They do.
Yeah, or they don't, or they just kill me instead, and then they lose to the person that had the problem.
You were saying, like,
No. I mean, or sometimes they will. But it's just at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, I don't want to make any deals. There's no reason for me to make a deal with you. At the end of the day, if I know for 100% fact that it's not 100% benefiting me, I'm not going to make a deal with anybody.
But this wasn't about politics. We've done that before. We do know that.
So right. This is why I make such a big deal about playing with people with integrity, because Johnny's 100% right. If you ask someone, and I think that's a powerful question, are you going to win on your next turn? Or will you win if I make this deal? If you're dealing with someone who's honest and goes, look, I don't have the win in my hand, but I 100% could draw it. And then you have to look and go, well, actually, they have a card that lets them draw 15 cards on their next turn.
Right.
That's another. Well, how many cards are you going to draw on your next turn? You can ask whatever questions you want.
And if you ask specific questions about table knowledge facts, a player cannot, by the rules, lie about it. If you say, do you have on your board a way to draw a lot of cards, and you say no, and you do, you are lying, and that's you have just forfeited the game according to the rules.
But if they're a dishonest person, they don't care. Whether or not, they're like, oh,
I'm saying this more for people to know, like, if somebody does that to you.
Yeah, if you are getting into politics, you can't lie about what's on your board. Your board state is table knowledge, so you have to let people know.
Don't lie at all. Just don't be a liar.
If you say, how many cards do you have in your hand, they have to tell you the truth.
Yeah, how many cards in your graveyard?
They will if they're a dishonest person, like Jeff is saying. But, so I think there's certain things that you just have to figure out on your own. And I will say this about you, Sloan. I think part of the reason that you don't do politics, if you really look at it, you are one of the most honest people I know.
Yeah,
in most situations, except for when if you made a mistake. You've never said you made a mistake. But
actually, that's not true. We have photo evidence of one time it happening. Ginger.
And the fact that a photo was taken, that tells you how rare that is. Yeah. But other than that,
that's right, it is rare.
You are so honest that when they ask you something like, Was it possible yeah, I could certainly win on my turn.
Yeah, 100%.
How many cards? I probably have 10 cards, and if I drew them right now.
So we're gonna go long for 1 second because I'm gonna tell a little bit of a story. But this is kind of cool. It gives you a sort of look into who we are as people. So when Johnny was a young man in high school, he came and lived with my wife and I, and at the time we actually had a nickname. He was our semi-adopted man-child.
Yes.
And so when he was there, after he stayed with us for a while, we sent him off to Word of Life Bible Institute to go to become a young man. And while he was there, you have to read these books. And then when you go to take a test during your class, you have to say how much of the book you read. And so you would think most people would be honest, right? If they only read 20% of the book, they would be honest. But also, why would you choose to fail a test if all you had to do was read the book? Read the book, answer the question, because it's worth a grade on the test. And so you could do great on the test. If you didn't read the book, you'll probably still get like a D. Or fail altogether. I'm getting calls because this knucklehead, he's not reading the books, but he is being honest. So I was at a conundrum because I was like, I'm both furious with him and at the same time really proud. Yeah. Because he's being honest about his stupidity. But I was also like, just read the friggin' book and you will pass these classes.
Yeah, it was 100% honor system. So there was no one that checked on you to make sure you read the book. There was no one that would check your test to verify that you read the book. It was just literally the last question on every single test every week was, did you read the book? Yes or no. Or did you read 25, 50, 75, or 100% of the book? Yeah. And you had to mark. And on the weeks I didn't read the book, I just hit 0 because I didn't. I was like, there's no reason for me to fake getting a better grade, what's the point? I
would say those two emotions flow strongly through our relationship. Proud of you. No, you're
and anger.
So aggravating.
Yeah.
So that's a little
I think that's part
Johnny's
of your
honesty.
politics problem.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Probably a little bit, I would say.
So let's move on to card of the day. So this is one, I actually sent this to Jeff a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's a good card.
And when I first saw this, I was like, this is nutty. Because, again, it's in green that doesn't need it.
Yeah, right.
But
we'll take it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So the card is Elemental Resonance. It is an enchantment aura. It costs 2 and 2 green. And it says, enchant permanent. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add mana equal to enchanted permanent's mana cost to your mana pool. In brackets it says mana cost includes color. If a mana symbol has multiple colors, choose one. And what it means by multiple colors is hybrid mana.
Yes.
That's nutty.
That's crazy.
It's so good, especially in
put
green.
that on Galta.
Put it on like any number of different things that are in green. Like for real, Craterhoof Behemoth's an 8-drop. Put it in any like dragon deck. All of those are 6+ drops.
If you're putting it on Craterhoof Behemoth, something has gone very wrong.
Yeah, right. Whoa, at least you got 8 mana.
You mean somebody fogged your attack, and now you're sitting there with the useless Craterhoof.
Yeah. There's so many different green creatures that are just ridiculous. 10 CMC, 12 CMC.
And it doesn't have to be green.
Nope.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a creature.
It could be an Eldrazi.
It just has to be a permanent. Doesn't even have to be. It could be a permanent. You could put this on an artifact that costs you 5 mana.
Or a Voltron deck.
Yeah.
Good grief.
It's this card is one that I feel like probably a lot of people get deterred from it because they're like, oh, it's 4 CMC. Like, I'm kind of committing a lot. Yeah, every turn if you got back 4 mana, it literally pays for itself on the very next turn.
Does this do like Carpet of Flowers where has anyone looked at the Oracle?
Yeah,
because
no,
Carpet
it
of
is
Flowers,
only your pre-combat main phase. There's only one pre-combat main.
So you are gonna wait a turn to hopefully get.
Unless you can flash it in, obviously.
Which the challenge with this, of course, is if they kill the creature, this is gone too. It doesn't stick around because it's an aura.
Green has recursion. That's okay.
Enchantment recursion specifically.
It does.
But
that would lead you more towards an enchantment deck.
Green has all the stuff.
Yeah, green's the.
So it's like all the colors have the stuff they can do, and then green can do all of it.
Yeah.
So,
Swift's army.
But that one, it's just so good. Like when I saw that, I'm like, that's.
Yeah, and then the big point, cost of the card.
Yeah, 80 cents.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
An 80 cent mana
80
cent card that generates you mana for free every pre-combat main
Even if
phase.
this is only on a 2, in 2 rounds you've gotten your mana.
Right. Yeah.
But you're probably going to have it 3, 4, 5 rounds.
Right. I mean,
what?
It's
This should not stick around 3, 4, or 5
It's only
rounds.
2 mana.
Yeah.
That Cons and Dragons.
Well,
enchantment
and again, the other
keeps
thing
extra.
is
And
too,
there
put it
goes
on
the
art-
politicking right there.
And there
It's
go-
only 2 mana.
Yeah, the other thing is too is put it on an artifact. You know how little targeted artifact removal there is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it on an artifact. Heck, I'll put it on. I'll get 1 free
Put it
mana.
on your Arcane Signet.
Yeah, I'll get 2
You get
free generic
two
mana.
free-
I mean,
no, 2 free generic plus
honestly-
the mana it produces.
Honestly, the best
So,
thing to probably put it on would be an enchantment. Or a planeswalker.
Right. I mean,
Well,
something.
enchantment's harder to remove than a planeswalker,
Oh,
I think. Put it on
we'd
an
have to look
enchantment.
up the rulings. What about those new lands that are also adventures? So on split cards, usually you add up all the converted mana costs.
That would be crazy powerful.
Wouldn't that be
Put it on a
crazy powerful? I'm
Yeah.
thinking of the blue
We'll-
land that
we'll let
mills
you guys-
after library.
Oh, it's bonkers. We'll let
Yeah,
you guys
6.
know next.
Yeah.
What next week?
Yeah.
Whether you could do that, because
Oh.
if you could put it on a land, that's 100% what you should do.
If you could get one of those adventure lands and put it on that, that's amazing.
Yeah, that'd be
And
good.
the thing that balances it out, though, is like the thing. Nothing balances it out.
Yeah,
It's
you
green.
can't balance that out.
There's
It's
no
green.
balancing it.
And people, by the way, people think that you and I, Sloan, hate on green. There's a lot of comments about how we hate on. Oh, they're hating on. It's
Yeah.
not that we hate on green.
No, I do.
It's that
I
green
hate
is
on green.
broken.
Yeah, I hate on green because it's so imbalanced. It's ridiculous. It's out of control.
Okay, I don't hate on green.
I
It's
hate
broken.
on green. Listen, I'll stand up for what I say. It's ridiculous. Green, pick one thing. Be good at one thing. You
But-
can't be good at all the
But
things.
what is blue?
It's counters and control magic.
Yeah,
And drawing. Counters and drawing.
So blue is fine. There's nothing wrong with blue.
Yeah,
No.
but green does drawing also.
Yeah, green does drawing.
Yeah, and it does
stompy creatures.
And it goes wide, and it does pluses, and it just
has the pluses
and
and
it has a more difficult time removing things.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Sure, it does.
No.
Yes, it does. It
No.
doesn't have as much. I mean, it has some stuff at like the 3 cost level, but like what you can do with counter spells for 0 mana, it doesn't have the ability.
Yeah,
to
but
do
there's not
that.
nearly as many 0 mana counters that you can shove in your deck to fill it with 0 mana counters
There's
as
like
there is
5.
as there is.
Some of them are game changers, and it's going to affect your tier level.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Most of the green stuff
There-
doesn't. Green has like a ridiculously small
yeah.
game changers list.
You can't speak
I'm
on
just
this topic.
saying,
You're
if
biased.
If you got,
You're biased.
I am. I love green.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I think it's silly to say it's that much more powerful than blue. It's not.
It's
And
just
black is
ridiculous that it
also
does
strong.
everything. It just
The
does
only
everything.
thing I would say is red is not good.
Red and white aren't good.
White is.
White
I
is
think
getting
white
better.
caught up.
Sure. Getting better doesn't make you good though. You can get better and still not be good. I'm just
I mean,
pointing it out.
I play.
I think we can all point to people
So
in our
like,
lives who like,
a
see.
lot.
That's true.
Anyway, got any player tips for us?
I do indeed. So my buddy reached out to me. He said, "Hey, I need to protect my commander more. He's playing the mono white Cloud Midgard mercenary."
Oh, don't cast him.
Yeah. So
That would
Protected.
protect them.
yeah, I said, well, yeah. I was like, white has a little bit of difficulty with that. Because normally the first thing you think of is how do I protect myself from getting killed or targeted is, counter spells. Yeah, white doesn't have a lot of that. You know what white does have a lot of, though? Cast an instant for 1 mana that says protection from color of your choice.
Yep.
Yeah, has a lot of those.
Or
Know it all-
indestructible.
or indestructible, or
Hexproof.
bounce this creature until end of turn, or bounce it and return it to the battlefield, or hexproof, or. So my point is a lot of times we think
Teferi's
of.
protection.
Is another really good one. But a lot of times we think of how do I protect my stuff is I need to get equipment enchantments or I need to get counter spells that will protect my stuff. And we forget that sometimes, protecting your stuff is also protecting from the color that's targeting it. There is so many spells in white specifically
and creatures.
that give you
Mother of
protection from
Runes.
colors. Yeah, Mother of Runes is a great one. You tap it, target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. That will stop a Beast Within. That's green. Great. I choose green. Now you can't target it with the Beast Within or anything else. Oh, someone's going to do this. Great. Pognify. Boom. Blue. Done.
There's many white creatures that say sack this creature, all your other creatures are indestructible.
Right.
Till end of turn.
And so, the point is when you're going to think of how do I protect my creatures when it's a creature-heavy deck, Cloud is very much so one. His whole shtick is you put equipment on him and it doubles the triggered abilities on him. there's ways to do it without having to be a blue deck with counter spells. Obviously, that's the one that you always think of first is I'm just going to counter your stuff. But
you can also use the equipment that you're already putting on them.
Right. So
many of those give hexproof or shroud.
Right.
Or, you don't really want shroud because then you can't.
You can't target him himself with your own stuff. But
Swiftfoot boots works.
Yeah, Swiftfoot boots is great. But I already have Swiftfoot boots. What else do I do? Well, there's instances specifically that it's true. But there's instances specifically that allow you to give your creatures protection from colors.
It's instance, not instances.
There's instances is
the moment. Instance is the card.
Hey,
no, but there's multiple
be an arc
instances.
again and let him finish?
Yeah, let me finish. Let me be an arc. You be an arc. But there's instances. I said it right. Multiple instances.
No.
Yes.
Are you talking about the moment or the card?
I'm talking about multiple versions of that card
Who's
that
on
do it.
first?
What's on second? And so not just in white though, in green, in red, there's a lot of ways to protect your stuff that's not just a pure counter spell. So remember, when you're going to look for protection, you don't always have to look for counter spells to do it or even equipments to do it. There's other cards outside of those.
One could actually argue they're sometimes not even as good because some of these ones that protect from the color, they protect from the color that whole turn.
Right.
So if you're protecting creatures, sometimes they can be better because the counter spells are 1-for-1. They played a spell, you played a spell. You're both down a card. The other two people are up a card.
Here's another one. Silence. Your opponent can't cast spells this turn.
Yeah, it's also good.
And that's a good one.
Right.
Play at the beginning of their turn and then just watch them be like, but.
Yeah. So when you're trying to protect yourself, remember, like we kind of talked about last week, look for cards that are a little bit off of the meta game plan of, just put counters in there and just put like one or two pieces of equipment. There's a lot of times you're going to find really good instant cards that are going to allow you to give yourself protection.
Unless you're playing in red.
I mean, red's a little bit harder. Red's more of it makes your stuff
in red, your protection is just kill them with damage before they do anything.
Well, or it has redirect spells.
Yeah, it has a lot of redirects.
So the point is you got to think outside the box.
Right,
so you can't counter. There's a couple counters in red, but that's it. And then redirect it. Make it go somewhere else.
Or copy
think
it.
Inside the box, like the color wheel, the color box. Essentially what we're saying is the ways of dealing with
wheels and boxes are like opposites, and he's using them as if they're synonymous.
Well, sometimes you put wheels on a box, and then you have a carriage.
Think outside the circle.
We did it. Now we're getting somewhere in a carriage.
This went off the rails so fast.
No, we're on wheels, not rails. But funny enough,
square wheels.
You use wheels on a rail. So we
connected to a rectangle, that are called train boxes.
And at Disney, you ride the monorail. So and then.
That doesn't
you get
have
bad
wheels.
cheese.
Duncan, you're not playing this game.
And then you get bad cheese. It's not even real.
Yeah, that's oily, fake government cheese.
Yeah. So
we should do an episode about that.
That's all the time we have for today. We just got to get out of here.
Yeah, we did.
Thanks for joining us. You can always check us out on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on youtube.com/@commanderspod. You can email us if you have any comments, questions, concerns, certainly about Jeff's mental well-being. cast@commanderspod.com. Check out our website, commanderspod.com. If you would like to support us, patreon.com/commanderspod. We'd very much appreciate it. We're trying to do more, do better, be better, as Sloan likes to say.
Be better.
And don't forget, play bold, swing wide, and don't forget to pay the one.
We'll leave